Hi, I'm Megan Brown, teacher and EdTech enthusiast. Thanks for joining me on this journey to learn and share meaningful ways to integrate technology into everyday lessons. So, you want to teach with technology? Let's get started. Hello, fellow educators. Welcome to today's episode. So, you want to use Desmos. We are going to go through how to use Desmos in any classroom, regardless of grade level or content area. I will discuss all the features Desmos has to offer and how to use them. If you have never used Desmos before, it is a website that teachers can use to create interactive lessons for students. The students will log on, and they'll go through different slides where they'll complete activities or answer questions. A little bit later, I'll go through all of the different options for students to complete. As students are working through the slides, the teacher is able to see every student's progress on their screen. Students can either move at their own pace, you can select what slides you want students to work on, or you can freeze their screen on one particular slide. If you would like to go over something, you can even pick an individual student's work to display on a smartboard or something like that for the whole class to see. Now, you could be worried about calling out particular students, but Desmos allows you to make student names anonymous, so it will change every name to a famous mathematician. That way students will know which screen is theirs, but they won't know anyone else. Another great feature about Desmos is that the teacher's screen will show if they have answered questions correctly or incorrectly. Sometimes I'll put this screen up on the smartboard so that the students can check if they've gotten a question correct or not. It will not automatically tell students on their screens if they got an answer right or not. You can make it so that Desmos will do this, but it does require a little bit of coding, and we'll talk about that at the very end. Before we look at the different activities you can make, I want to try to save you some time. If you have a great activity idea, before you go starting from scratch, take a look at what's out there. If you go to teacher.desmos.com, you can search for activities that Desmos has released to see if there's something similar to what you were thinking of. All you need to do is search the topic you want to teach, or you can search a tag like distance learning or elementary activities. Then you can preview the activities to determine if it will serve your purpose or not. Searching in the Desmos website will bring up activities that were made by Desmos. Another option is to Google search for activities, and that will bring up activities created by other educators. I am consistently blown away by the quality of these activities. There are so many people out there who have made very detailed lessons. They're coded and interactive with what students input. I hope one day to be able to do this kind of coding because it creates endless possibilities for what Desmos can do. You are able to use any activity that you find, but if there's something that you don't like or something you want to change, you do have the ability to create a copy, and then you can edit it however you would like. What makes Desmos different from other online activities, especially for math, is that Desmos allows you to do more than just have practice questions for students to answer. I know I like to use a lot of websites like Kahoot or Quizlet, but they're not learning new information, they're just practicing information that we've already gone over. Desmos offers instruction in a way that's not direct instruction like from a video. It really can be hands-on where they're generating their own learning. I feel like the best way for me to describe this is to give you an example. What I did was I went to Desmos, I searched for distance learning activities, and I found an activity called Balloon Float. And I just want to take you through what this activity looks like. So the first slide has a video to watch, and then you can type in comments based on your observations of the video. The next slide, it shows 3 ducks, and each duck has a different number of balloons attached. there's a button to click that says try it, and when you click it, all the ducks are released and you see what happens. So one of the ducks floats down, one of the ducks stays where they are, and one of the ducks floats up. The next slide shows you the duck that floated, and you use that information of how many balloons allows the duck to float to figure out how much weight one balloon can hold. After that, it gives you a few different objects that you can try to make float. You write in how many balloons you think they'll need, and then you click try it and you see what happens. So this is a very hands-on experimenting with what works until you figure out how to make each object float. Then you use that information to figure out a pattern, and you write that pattern as a mathematical equation. Finally, you use that equation to figure out how many balloons you'll need to float other materials. So as you can see, this lesson started off with an interactive component. Students were trying things, making observations. If something was wrong, if something didn't work, they could go back and change it. Then students are asked to reflect on a pattern, and the last part of the activity is actually using that pattern that you found. So this lesson is not me telling students step by step what to do. Students are using their own knowledge, their own experiences to come up with their new learning on their own. I know this is just one example with one topic, but I hope it gets you thinking about the potential lessons that you can create that will have students engaged and taking ownership of their learning. Now let's dive into what you can do in your classroom with Desmos. The first type of lesson I want to talk about is called the Polygraph. The best way I can describe this is by comparing it to the game Guess Who. Basically, you have 16 cards and you determine what goes in the cards. So you can add graphs, you can put equations, text, tables, or pictures. This is like Guess Who because students, when you play, are automatically paired with each other, and each one is given one specific card. They'll then ask each other yes or no questions to determine which card their partner has. Whoever guesses the correct card wins. After they complete one game, it will pair them up with a new partner. This game is a unique and fun way to get students communicating with each other and using academic vocabulary. It can also be done while social distancing because all the conversation happens through text, so students are not required to turn and talk to their partner. Polygraphs also require a lot of thought and analysis of the content, so students can correctly eliminate potential cards. What a great way to promote collaboration while practicing and deepening the learning of their new content. So polygraphs are the first tool, but if you don't want to use one of those, the other option is to create an activity. You create slides with whatever items you would like to include. On each slide, you can add around 5 items, and I'm going to quickly go through all the options that Desmos provides. There are a couple of options that require a full screen, so you can only select one for those slides. I want to first talk about all the non-math specific options that you can add to an activity. You can use these in any content area. The first thing you can add is a note. Here, you write any text that you would like to include on the slide. You could pose a question for students to answer, write a story, whatever you need. Next, you can add essentially a short answer or a fill-in-the-blank questions. There are text inputs where students write out their answer using text. Or you can select math input where students input their answer as a number or an equation. Here you can also have the option for students to explain their answer. The cool thing about these two question types is you can select whether or not you would like Desmos to display students' answers. If you select this option, after a student submits their answer, they can read what other students have written. In addition to having short answer or fill-in-the-blank questions, you can also select multiple choice questions or check boxes. With these questions, you have the option to make students explain their answer, and you can select whether or not you want students to be able to see their classmates' responses. The great thing about using Desmos for these questions is you can add answer options that are text, an equation, a graph, or a picture. I know a lot of websites where you can create quizzes don't always have these options, so it's great that Desmos easily allows you to type in an equation, add a graph, or a picture. It even has the option for pictures to add a description for those that are visually impaired. The next option is an ordered list where students move the answer options into the correct order. You create an answer key, so it will show you which students have ordered the options correctly. Again, each answer option can be text or an equation, so it makes writing things other than text a lot easier. The next option is my favorite, sketches. This option allows students to draw out whatever they would like. It's also great because you can have a blank background, you can put a graph in the background with or without an equation, or you can upload a picture to use for the background that students will sketch over. This is always my favorite for students because they have so much fun drawing, and you can have in-depth discourse by discussing student examples. The next option is to upload media. On any slide, you can add pictures or videos to accompany whatever items you have on the slide. In addition to pictures or videos, another option to add is tables. You can fill in each table for students to use, or you can leave cells blank for students to fill in. The final item that you can select that is useful in any classroom is a card sort. Here, students group together cards to practice their content. On each card, you can add text, an equation, a picture, or a graph. You can also create an answer key so that you'll know which students have correctly sorted the card. There are endless possibilities for using card sorts, such as practicing vocabulary, sorting events with their dates and prominent figures, grouping equations with their graphs and a real-world situation that represents the graph, or grouping a picture of a cell organelle with its name and function. If you have a sorting activity that you love to use, you can use this card sort feature if you have to teach virtually, or if you just want to eliminate the hassle of cutting out cards or students losing them. All of these options can be used in any subject area. But I do want to talk specifically about math for a moment because Desmos has a few features that are specifically designed for mathematics that makes online activities in math so much easier than a lot of other websites. One thing that Desmos has is a geometry tool. This allows you or your students to create different shapes, measure angles, draw different types of lines and line segments, create arcs, and even perform translations and dilations. You can create any of these and have them on the page for students to look at or to move and manipulate, or you can have students create these shapes themselves. If you are teaching geometry remotely, I highly recommend checking out this option because it makes creating and manipulating shapes online a breeze. Plus, you don't have to worry about students having a printer to print out and cut their own shapes in person. The next math-specific option is the graphing tool. This has a coordinate plane that will show a graph of any equation. It does not show what the equation is, it just graphs whatever line is created from the equation. There's also a graphing calculator that will display both the graph and equation. It's editable, so students can write their own equation to be graphed, or they can manipulate an equation that you have written. Last but not least is Marble Slide. I gave a brief overview of Marble Slides in episode 1, so feel free to check that out if you have not already. Basically, when you create a Marble Slide activity, first you place where you want marbles to be released and they'll fall straight down on the graph. Next, you determine where you want the stars on the graph to be. All you do is enter the coordinates, and then a star will appear on those coordinates. Students will see the marbles and the stars. Their job is to write equations to try to make the marbles move and land on the graph in order to collect all of the stars. If your students cannot write equations on their own yet, you can have an equation outlined there for students to manipulate. This is a very interactive and fun activity for students that helps them use their critical thinking skills while deepening their knowledge of equations. The last part of Desmos I want to discuss is the computation layer. This allows you to code your activity in order to be more interactive and really allow you to create any possible lesson. It allows Desmos to react to what students input and create activities that are more like a choose-your-own-adventure. I'm going to be creating YouTube tutorials that go over some simple ways I have used the computation layer, such as creating questions that show students if their answer is correct or incorrect, if you are interested in learning any of those features. If you have a question about the computation layer that you want me to do a YouTube video for, feel free to email me at toteachwithtech@gmail.com. If you have no interest in putting in that time and effort to figure out how to use the computation layer, which I do not blame you for, Desmos has released starter screens that you can use and edit for your own activities. They are interactive slides that you can add your own questions and own problems into to make a complete lesson. It has screens for checking in, checking understanding, fraction tasks, and virtual whiteboards with different backgrounds that students can draw on. These screens include activities where students can move a point on a line to show their stress level or how much they understood a lesson. Everything is editable, so you can change the labels, so you can use it for checking in with students, or you can change it to content material. So instead of having a sliding tool that has non-confident or confident in understanding the material, you could turn it into a number line and use it to practice decimals, so students have to move the dot to the correct decimal. No matter how you use it, all of these interactive components are ready to go, which makes your life a lot easier. Thank you all so much for listening. Please share your Desmos ideas with the To Teach with Tech community on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube at the number 2 Teach with Tech. I hope you join in next week where we will look at various ways to use Google Forms in the classroom. If you have any specific questions you want addressed, or you want to share your favorite ways to use Google Forms, please email me at the number 2 teachwithtech@gmail.com. Thanks, and we will chat soon.